Yes,
we can.
All righty. So you see, I said this is my favorite, one of my favorite scriptures. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Ooh.
So we are not going to allow lack of knowledge to destroy us. Before we start, I want you to know I've been a member of the League of Women Voters for over 25 years. And we are a nonpartisan organization. We believe in the power of every person through their votes to create a more perfect democracy. So what we do is we not only do voter registration, but we also do a lot of voter education. And I'm part of the Speakers Bureau with the League. So, you know, if you need somebody to come talk to you, I'm one of the people who will do that. So let's talk about this election that's coming up. Key dates, some of them have passed, and the rest of one has passed, and the rest of them are in front of us. The first day to vote early in person is February 14th, Monday. The last day, as I just told you, to apply for a vote by mail ballot is February 18th. February 18th is the last day to apply. That means that the application has to be in their office by close of business on the 18th, or the last mail delivery on the 18th. February 25th is the last day to vote early in person. And election day, of course, is March 1st. And that is also the day by which your mail-in ballot has to be in the office. Now, what are we going to do? What's happening here? Okay, here are a few little things. If you're voting by mail, understand that when you get that ballot, don't let it sit around. Go ahead, fill it out, and send it in. Mail it as soon as possible. Use a blue or black pen. Do not use a pencil. I worked on the Fort Bend ballot board. I am going to tell you right now, we saw many ballots that people use pencils. It's hard for the machine to read those. They get kicked out, and then they have to go through another process to get it counted. So use a blue or black pen, not a pencil. And fill out, vote in every race. And we're going to show you some little something to help you educate yourself on who you want to vote for. Now, if you are worried about the mail, because you know the mail is a little unreliable these days, to hand deliver, the voter has to hand deliver their marked ballot in person to the county election office on election day. You can't go do it during early voting. You have to go on election day and turn it in. That is a change. It used to be you could turn it in anytime from the start of early voting. Now they have made it so that if you want to hand deliver it, you have to do that on election day. And you must show an ID, and you have to sign your name on a roster that you turned in your ballot. You cannot turn in someone else's ballot for them. Everyone has to do their own. I am sorry for this.
It's Zoom. We understand completely. So while she's away, I guess the narrative.
Okay. All right, I'm back.
Okay.
So if you cannot say to your neighbor, I'm going down to turn mine in, let me turn yours in. Everybody has to turn their own in because everybody has to show ID. Now, voting early in person. You can vote at any location in the county. Ray and I were talking earlier that the number of early voting locations is not as numerous as has been in the past.
We're going to go over that after. We're going to clarify.
Right.
where
Right.
there are places to vote.
Now, you can go to vote411.org, or you can go to harrisvotes.org if you're in Harris County, or fortbendvotes.org if you're in Fort Bend County, and find the polling site, the early voting polling site.
And Pam, can I ask a clarifying
Mhm.
question that came up?
Sure.
So is in Harris County, is it the same as it is in Fort Bend County, so that you can vote in at any precinct and you'll still be able to vote for your races?
Yes.
As long as
because-
it's within the county, it'll populate the vote that corresponds with your precinct in your district. Okay, so
that
you
is
don't run the
correct.
risk of not being able to vote for a particular candidate because you voted on the other side of town.
That is correct. You will get it's all electronic, and we're going to talk in a minute because Harris County is using a new voting system this year, starting with this election. So that's going to be presents another little challenge, but not much of a challenge because it's really pretty easy.
That's why we have you here.
But what I do want to let you know, voters with disabilities and their helpers who are in line to vote in person can request to move ahead of other voters in line. All your helper has to do is go ask, and if you have a person in a wheelchair or a walker or something, that's what you.
That's great
have
information.
That option, yes.
And who do they speak with? Do they have to
ask to speak with the election judge?
Okay. Thank you.
Everything in a polling place on election day is under the purview of the election judge, who it has to be by law in the place at all times. Now, here's another, curbside voting, which is also available during early voting and on election day. Voters who are physically unable to enter the polling place or, without injuring themselves or their health, can ask for curbside voting. You just have whoever drives you to the polls drive you there, and that person will take your ID and go into the polling place and ask the election judge, say I have someone outside who needs curbside voting. They will check you in and they will bring the machine physically to the car so that the voter can vote. And they did not change this, so this is still the same.
Slightly surprised.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about voter harassment, because we've all heard a lot about these poll watchers. And this new law, Senate Bill 1, has given poll watchers greater freedom and flexibility in the polling place. So previously, a poll watcher had to sit where the election judge told them to sit and observe, and they could take notes, but they couldn't, that was it. Any conversation they had to go on with the election judge. What the state has done is now they are requiring that poll watchers and poll workers take a training that is offered online at the Secretary of State's website. And because I'm a nosy person and I like to know how things work, and if anyone encounters a problem at the polling place, I think you need to know what the rules are. So guess what? I went and took the training yesterday, and I got a certificate. I can be a poll watcher now.
Hallelujah. I'm coming with you.
Poll watchers, and you can go do it too. I mean, go to the Secretary of State.gov, SOS.gov, and take it, because at least you'll know what they can and cannot do. But let's talk about election officials first. They cannot question a voter about the use of an ID type. So if you show them a card, election ID card, and someone says, well, do you have a driver's license? Well, that ID card is an acceptable form. if you show them your hunting license or concealed carry license, if that's an acceptable form, they shouldn't ask you, well, do you have a driver's license? If it's an acceptable form, they cannot question you. Poll watchers can never question a voter about anything. Poll watchers, per the training I took, cannot even talk to a voter. So poll watchers can only talk to the election judge.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so what's the protocol? First, if what you said, I have an ID card, election ID card, which is a valid form, and one of the elections officials says or asks, do you have a driver's license? Do I ask to speak to
you ask to speak to the election judge?
The election judge. Same thing.
Yeah.
If a poll watcher comes over and is like, hey, bro, you got any credit card debt? Because if you vote, blah, 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 or whatever it is. So rather than get on the hotline that you have displayed, the first move of protocol is to go to say, hey, ma'am, I want to report I know that my rights, it says that an election official cannot, and this election official, this one right here, said X, Y, and Z. So if at that point the election official either does not rectify the situation, at what point does it need to leave? Does the hotline need to be called, or does the person need to take a step back before they vote?
Let me say this. If someone is going to deny you the ability to vote, which I doubt that they would, if they're questioning, and remember this too, the only thing on your ID that has to match is your picture and your name, not your address. The address doesn't. So if you move and if you moved 3 months ago and you have not changed your driver's license, if your picture, because remember, it's picture ID, and your name match what's on the roll, they can't ask you about your address because they're not trying to match addresses. Okay. And that's in that training, by the way. So yeah, Ray, I tell folks, if you have not been issued a ballot and you feel like you are being harassed, call, talk to the judge, and they'll get it straightened out. More times than not, they will get it straightened out. But if for some reason they're trying not to let you vote, leave the polling place. But if they've already given you a little thing to go vote, then you go on and vote because they checked you in and said you're a voter. So, don't leave you,
That's good clarification. And so I'm referring, the last year we had a situation where on the first day of early voting, Fort Bend had an issue, and my ballot was one of a handful that would not populate in the system. So they gave me a card and they wrote my precinct on it. I called you, and I was able to tell the election judge, you know what, I feel more comfortable voting with a ballot that has been populated by the system. And so I gave them the ballot back. Yeah. And then I was able to come back the next day. Right. They and vote. So it reflected that I was still eligible to vote. But like you said, it required me to give them that ballot back to communicate with the elections official. And I was willing to wait a day just to leave nothing to chance. So you have that, we have that option. If we feel, we can always go to a different precinct. We can go later that day. We can go the next day, as long as we make sure that ballot is turned back in at that point. Okay. So, and I wish we had 2 hours, but I wanted to try to get you to walk us through several other things. Okay, but, well, here are the election protection hotlines, and we got them for all different languages. And you all are all going to get a copy of this. Ray has, I sent copies of this to Ray. Okay. When you have a long ballot, it's like, how am I going to remember everybody I need to vote for? Well, guess what? The voter guide, you can either print it out, or you can take a copy, or you can
write on a piece of paper, a piece of notebook paper, who you're voting for. You can take paper in the booth. The only thing that you cannot take in is your phone, your mobile phone. So, I mean, you can take it in, but it has to be in your purse. Do not pull it out because then, you know, you're in trouble. But mobile phones are prohibited in the voting booth. So whatever, you know, whatever you need, bring that. I want to show you real quickly. Harris County has new voting machines. It's called the Verity Duo system. And we're using the system, we've been using the system in 14 counties. It's a, you know, pretty decent. The good thing is it has a paper trail. So
Right, yeah, that is a good thing.
yeah, so you cast your ballot on the touch screen and it prints out a copy. You do your voting on screen and then it prints out a copy. You look at it and you say, yep, these are all the people I voted for. And then you take that printed copy to a Verity scan machine and you stick it in there and it scans it and records your ballot. And then you drop that thing in the little receptacle.
Yeah,
And
people
that's
of my
what-
generation, if you can think Scantron, so you get, it
Yeah.
looks like a Scantron piece of,
Yep,
you know,
yep.
you
Now,
feed it,
do not leave the polling place with that printed copy.
got to drop it.
Because if you leave the polling place with that printed copy, you have not voted.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna go back in any
Yeah.
questions? Did I hear somebody?
Well, I think she was thanking you for that wisdom. I think
Yeah.
the to our benefit. So whenever they try to say it was rigged and this, they can go physically grab my vote
Yes,
because
Because
there
it's
is no
got your
getting around that.
identity.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
a backup. So actually this helps the cause of those who would be victim of somebody claiming fraud with no
Right.
basis. And this is
Right.
that you can audit all day, but you know, how many times are you going to count
Yeah.
something physically that's not there? So
That's correct. That's correct. Okay.
I know people know what Scantrons are.
Before we go to questions, I am going to I'm gonna end this show.
Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. We
And I
appreciate you
want
taking
to
the time.
go and show you the I'm still sharing. I want to show you the voter's guide. And the Houston voter guide has not been populated. Can you all see this?
Yes.
We can. Can
Okay.
you give those who are newer to the process, just explain to them what the League of Women Voters does every election
Okay. The
briefly?
League of Women, and it's on here. We fund and publish this ourselves. And if our friends want to help and donate to help us publish it, because it is very expensive to publish. But this voter guide, this is the paper voter guide. And a lot of senior citizens prefer the paper voter guide because it's what they're used to. You can go online and get the same information at vote411.org. Okay.
So be clear, those that want out of our ministry, Sister Pam is providing us with several hard copies of this. So if you do want
Right.
one, please communicate with Sister Amber, and we will make sure that you get one.
I've got 50 copies
Actually-
that I'm gonna get to
Go
y'all
ahead, Ange.
tomorrow.
Actually,
jumping
we
the
have,
gun.
actually, we've placed the link into the chat, so you can all download the link.
Thank you.
Amber
Okay,
post-
now this link right here, what I'm showing you now is the Texas voter guide, because the Houston voter guide, I was hoping would be populated today by the time we did this, but it's not. So as soon as it is populated, because that's the one that's gonna have all of your local stuff in it. This one that I'm showing you is the statewide voter guide, which you have the same. rate.
We will relay whenever, just let us know whenever the
Okay.
one is populated. We'll relay
So
that
let
link.
me say this, when you read the voter guide, we ask all candidates in a race the same issue, the same questions. They send us back their responses. We print them without editing or verifying. whatever they send us, if it's misspelled, if it has bad punctuation, and you will see that in this voter guide. Let me tell you, there's one in here, a guy who's running for State Board of Education. I called and I said, why did we even print this? But that's what he sent, so that's what we're sending it.
Well, now you know whether he's qualified.
Right, and if there is an inappropriate response, we will say the candidate's response did not meet the criteria listed in the voter guide.
And
So
some of them won't respond at all, which is a statement as well.
you're gonna see that in a minute. Now, here's all this information. The voter guide is, I tell people, the voter guide is like Civics 101. Everything I just told you about hand delivering, and if you're a suspended voter and vote early in person, all of that is in the voter guide. Here's voter ID, what to take to the polls. Here's all of the, and so you can take this voter guide with you to the polls, okay? These are all the things. Here's the stuff about voter harassment that we just talked about. Now, let's go to the race. The first race at the top is, well, at the top, you're gonna get governor. And it tells you what he is, how long it's for your term, how much money he makes, what his responsibility is. It tells you the questions that we ask of all the candidates, what are their qualifications, election laws, the power grid, healthcare, immigration. And then you start to get the responses. So this first person, who's a Democrat, did not send a response. Michael Cooper sent in his responses and his picture. Joy Diaz, Beto O'Rourke, Rich Wakeland. Then we get to the Republicans who are running.
And to be, as I was about to say, to be clear, they all inputted those things themselves, the candidates, except for the one that's already governor, did not feel.
Oh, no, you're gonna see lots of these.
More.
Okay. Greg Abbott, no response. Paul Bellew, and he says, I have no political experience. You know, I mean, some of these are really interesting reading. Danny Harrison. This woman's name is Candy K. Horn. Here's this guy, Don Huffines, no response. This is not Rick Perry, who used to be the governor. This is a different Rick Perry. Okay. Alan West, who's the former chair of the state chair of the Republican Party. No response received. Then here are the lieutenant governor. Here are the questions and their answers. And then we get to the Republicans, and here's a no response, no response. Dan Patrick, no response. So you see how that kind of goes. I'm not gonna waste your time scrolling through this. So let me bring up something else. Here is another great little thing. I sent this to Ray. We just put this out. We just published this today. This is voter FYI. This is a little fact sheet. Helpful things to know: the polls close at 7. Voters who are in line at 7 can vote. And here's voters may be assisted. Now remember this: if someone asks you to assist them, be cognizant of this. You cannot be the voter's employer, union representative, or union agent. The other thing you need to know is that if you are going to assist someone, they now make you sign an oath. And this oath basically says, if I ask the person, if I name a candidate to the person I'm helping, I am in violation and I can go to jail. You just have to go and the person has to either point to who they want if they're, hearing impaired, and you fill out for them. So, they're not as, I'm trying to really carefully use my words here. I am not so sure that they're trying to discourage people, handicapped people from voting. I really do. This is one of the things. But if you're going to help somebody, just when you sign that oath, just make sure that you don't do some of those things. Because some of those poll watchers may be close enough to be in earshot of you.
So real quick, I had
the other thing, you can take
Go
as
ahead.
much time as you wish. The ballot is not going to time out. So, don't feel rushed when you're in the polling, in the booth. Okay.
So if you're helping someone, if you're assisting someone and you gave the parameters, it can be, you can help anyone, to the polls to vote. But we can't tell them, like, if they're sitting there and they get stuck, is that what that's designed? Someone can't kind of show them who to vote for or say.
Here's an example that the state gives. If you are my grandson and I'm just having a few little memory issues, you can't say to me, Grandma, did you want to vote for that nice lady that came to the house last Wednesday? I think her name was Rose. You can't do that.
Yeah, so you've been a Democrat all your life. You've been a Democrat for all your life, Grandma.
Yeah.
You know who to vote for.
If the person tells you, I want to vote for you, see, you can't, and they can't tell you, I want to vote for all the Democrats. If you're voting in the Democratic primary, everybody on the ballot is a Democrat.
That's a bad example.
If you're in the Republican primary, everybody on the ballot is a Republican. So,
So what's best practice if somebody does? We kind of have to.
If you're going to assist somebody, sit down with them before you get to the polling place and have a piece of paper with who they want to vote for, and take that piece of paper in the polling in the box with you. That's all you do.
Got it.
Just figure it out before you get there. Don't let this be a last minute thing. Have a strategy. The strategy is to go ahead and decide before you get there who they're going to vote for. Let them decide who they're going to vote for. So anyway, so that's that. Now, let me see. Close out the voter guide, close this out. And here's some FAQs.
Pam, FYI, we still have some time. I did want to see if anyone had questions for you.
Let's cut this
But
off
go ahead,
here
yeah. Go ahead.
because you all are gonna get all this stuff. So what kind of questions do we have?
Let me turn it back over to Angela if you wanted to
stopping
stop
my share.
Okay, thank you for that.
Pam, can you just talk a moment about the importance of voting in the primaries?
Yes, it is extremely important to vote in the primaries because did you see when I was scrolling through how many people are running for each of those offices? The primary determines who's going to be on the ballot in November. So you need to go make your voice heard. But we have just come through a presidential term of office where if people had voted like they were supposed to in a primary, we might not have had the person on the ballot in November.
Right. Well, I think that's an excellent point that it took us making a stand in South Carolina, if for no other reason, to put the candidate on the ballot that is the most capable of, and I think that's what, as a voter,
representing.
Right. And those are the things as a voter, that's what a voter guide can do is to, to show, okay, this race is more, especially in this state, we really need to have candidates that are going to be able to be competitive. So Go ahead, Angela.
We have a couple of more questions. Reverend Brendel had a question about how close a poll watcher can get physically to a voter.
That is up in the air, and I didn't even see that in the training. So they should not invade your personal space. Okay. And if they do, that's considered harassment. So no one should be close enough to where they can look and see who you're voting for.
Right.
Okay.
This is a
And
hard.
if they are, then you raise your hand and you say, election judge, I need help.
Okay. Mr. Hart also had a question. It was related when you were talking about presenting your ID and being questioned about that ID. Her question was, can you just say no and then they let you continue to vote? And they should let you continue to vote?
If it's a legitimate form of ID, and I need to tell you this about your driver's license. People over 70 can have a driver's license that expired 10 years ago. If it's got their face on it. Now, anybody under 70, your driver's license has to be expired within 4 years. So yes, you can take an expired license, because remember, the law is photo ID. So it should be your picture. That's what they're looking at, and your name, not your address, and not. But yes, if it's a legitimate form of ID, and they say, well, don't you have a driver's license? You just tell them very nicely, you smile, and put on your little Christian smile and say, this is the ID, this is the appropriate ID and approved ID that I'm using today. Thank you. May I have now my ballot?
And you said that we will be able to have sample ballots for Houston
Yes.
fairly soon.
You can do sample ballot. You can pull down a sample ballot now.
Okay.
Am I still in? No, I'm not in. Am I in share screen?
No, I think you closed.
I'm not. Okay. You can go to harrisvotes.org, and they have that site is, Isabel Longoria has done a great job. That site is so smooth. There's you can click right on to sample ballots. And if you don't know your precinct number, you can find it. If anybody has if you have your card, your voter registration card, your precinct number is on the card. So you just put in your precinct number and it'll bring up your sample ballot. And you can print that out, and you can use that voter guide to go through and read up on those folks, or go online and read up on those folks and mark who you want to vote for. And then you're ready to go vote.